This podcast is made possible through donations from listeners like you and our partners at Tallman Equipment. They pride themselves on equipping their customers with the tools they need to get the job done right. They are dedicated to set the standard for quality, convenience, and reliability. At Tallman, your opinion is important to them. Rate and review any product or tool you've used on their new website at tallmanequipment.com. Line 11 Clothing Company, making apparel for their first responders with a positive message to patriots that you can be proud of. A proceed of the cost goes to helping our foundation ignite the fire for father engagement. Give them a follow at Line 11 Clothing on Instagram. You could also find them or email them at line11clothing@yahoo.com. And last but not least, Monzingo Knives. Each knife is created with craftsmanship that only a tradesman could provide. Find them on Instagram at Monzingo Knives and get your American-made Monzingo knife today. Welcome to the Show Up Dad. Today's special guest is Toni, and he has recently been on the showcased on the critically acclaimed show Forged in Fire, where he won the title of champion. Apart from being the show's champion, he is a single dad of two girls, Carissa, 23, and Toni, 18. He has spent 20 years in the line trade, and he has worked as a contractor, and he gave them 9 years. He later went on to Southern California's Edison, where he's been for the past 11 years. Okay, so Toni currently is the operations supervisor for the Ontario district in California. Today, he's going to share with us what it took to become a show-up dad. Welcome to the show, brother.
Hello, how you doing, my man?
Dude, awesome to get you on here, bro. I'm doing swell, man. Congratulations on winning Forge. You know, that's a awesome honor, dude. I've been watching that show for a while now, and it's pretty awesome what you guys do, you know, for sure.
Yeah, definitely a challenge, and it was awesome just to participate in it.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Can you tell us a little bit about that experience on the show there, Toni?
Yeah, sure. Just like I was saying, it was very challenging, and mainly because you're not in your home forge. You know, you're in a setting where you're being timed, and you got to pay attention to what you're doing. There's no mistakes allowed because you've only got 3 hours in the first challenge, and you make one mistake, it's hard to recover in 3 hours.
Mm-hmm.
At home, be a lot easier. It's more controlled, and you got all day. So that, in my opinion, that was the most challenging part. You're not home.
Oh yeah, absolutely. What got you making into like making blades and swords and stuff like that, Toni? What sparked your interest in that, if you don't mind us?
Yeah, sure. The first spark was I had just purchased a knife, pocket knife, and I'd lost it. So I was like, you know what? I'll go get another one. And I went to the shop to go buy another one. It was $400, and I was like, you know what? I'm going to make one. And it started there. But I think the main reason was, since I've been out of the fields for a little bit now, and in the office, I'm just working with my hands, and it was an opportunity to get back in a sense in the tools, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And just building stuff and making stuff, because I love that so much. I love this trade that we're part of. And I just wanted to get back in working with my hands. And I think that was mainly the main interest right there.
Mm-hmm. And I could totally see that too, because as tradesmen, as linemen, I think people forget that, man, we're actually creators. I mean, we take something and we turn it into something, you know what I mean? Whether it be, here's a cross arm and, a couple of pins, and next thing you know, we're bored at the house, you know what I mean? Waiting for the next big job, and we're making a mailbox. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
You know what
I mean?
That is
correct.
So that's part of our creative nature, as tradesmen and stuff like that. So I think that's awesome that you found that. I have another friend named Will Monzingo. He's one of our sponsors, and he actually makes knives too. He doesn't do them to the extent that you do. He actually does grinding, so he doesn't do the forge. But he makes some really awesome lineman knives as well. You know what I mean?
That is super cool.
Now, I wanted to ask you, Toni, how did that hobby help you to be a better father? What do you think?
Just like any other job, and anytime we spend away from our families, you got to have some sort of time management,
Mm-hmm.
And those are some of the things that earlier in my life, I didn't have a big control of. So taking on this hobby was extra, right? I still work, and I'd come home and do this. So that was all about time management to retain that family connection, that I have with my girls. So, I think it made me even better with my time. Definitely, because it's not easy, working two jobs.
Right.
Definitely not.
Yeah, it's definitely you're burning the candle at both ends.
For sure, yeah.
We had a couple of past guests on here, and that was the reason why I asked you that question is because a couple of past guests on here were linemen as well, and they transitioned out of their tools. One of them's Kevin from Low Drag Line Hand, and the other one is Something Obscene. And he came on here, and that was one of the things that they had to adjust to as well, just figuring out how not to spend so many hours in their shed just grinding and putting in the work to be successful. You know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely.
So we want to transition to this topic, Tony. Okay, as you know, this show is based on the premise of trying to be a better father, trying to be a better husband, trying to just be better in general. You know what I mean? So I wanted to ask you, can you give our listeners a brief history of your family? And how was it like growing up in your household? Your father and mother and stuff like that, if you don't mind.
No, for sure. Yeah, I'm a first generation American here. My parents are both from Mexico. And, they came over here in the 60s, married, and I'm the oldest of four. And I grew up in Long Beach, which is a coastal city here in California, up until the age of 10. Then we moved out to a little bit called Montana. And growing up in my house was a very disciplined home. My mother was always very loving. My father very disciplined, but he knew how to show his ways of love in a certain way that us kids understood. But we knew that you better have your chores done. Whatever he said had to be done. Definitely was number one. But yeah, I can't complain about my childhood. I played sports throughout my whole life. My parents were very supportive of everything I did. Really had an impact on my life, and especially with my father. My father's a mechanic, so he works with his hands, and he's a craftsman. He builds engines. He does whatever it takes to get a car going, and he's still doing it to this day at the age of 69. And I'll tell you what, that was real important for me, just what he taught me, because I still maintenance all my vehicles. I don't take them in unless I have to. There's some things we can't do because of all the electronics in these cars these days, but definitely put my hands into the monster, I guess you could say. I was in there, and he taught me a lot. I respect my father big time.
Looking back, Tony, what are some of the things that you think that shaped you, just what he taught you? Like, do you think it was like work ethic? Is that one of the greatest things that he showed you? Or what would you think?
Definitely work ethic. My dad taught me to really go out and get it. I've been working since I was 16 years old. I've never stopped. Main thing he taught me. The other thing he taught me, my father, was the ways he showed me, love, a little different than how I show my girls love. My dad was disciplined. Like, you get this done, you get that done. And it's work. You take care of your family. He taught me that. One of the things I learned from my father was, although my dad, every birthday, on my saint day, San Antonio, he would sing to me. And that's how my dad showed love. He would get down and sing his son a song. It was really cool. So we're far in between. It was only on birthdays, once a year, once in a while. So I learned from my father that, and not that was bad, but I learned from my father to tell my kids, I love you every day, rather than just once in a while. But although I knew my dad loved me a ton, the guy's awesome. He just had a different upbringing. So I learned a little different thing to do with my own kids than what he did. But us brothers and sisters knew how much our dad loved us. He was just getting us ready for this world,
Yeah.
in his own way,
And it's kind of interesting to see that you recognize that's a good thing. I mean, to see that, you know, what he was lacking in telling you guys, you know, I love you every day, but knowing that he loved you, you know what I mean? And then just saying, hey, I didn't like that. I'm going to change that in my family. And that's the whole thing about being a show up dad too, is just, you know, not blaming our parents, you know what I mean? Not blaming our parents for their downfalls or what they did or did not do, but saying, hey, let's take the good and the bad and let's adapt from that. And let's not do what they did. You know what I'm saying? So that's cool that you recognize that. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
What did he teach you about being a father that you like to share to your two daughters? Like, what have you shared with them that he's taught you?
Well, my dad, just by simply singing a song to me, you know, on my birthdays and stuff like that, taught me how to be just humble, you know, because what's the number one fear in the world is speaking in front of, you know, crowds or whatever.
Right.
Singing, you know, I mean, that's got to be tough, you know, and my dad would do that for me. So it taught me to be just so humble with my kids and just expressing my shortcomings even with my own kids, you know, just if you can humble yourself and talk to your kids in a way that they can relate to you, that even dad has, you know, things that bother him and stuff like that, you know, that's something that they can relate to and say, hey, it's okay to be, you know, down sometimes or have problems, because even dad has it, but he tells me about it, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And I think my dad, by singing to me and being so humble and doing those things for me, was just what taught me to have a relationship with my kids in that way, where they know everything about me.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean, it's pretty cool, you know.
Absolutely. And that just builds a whole different level of trust too when you're being transparent with them. You know, you hit the nail right on the head. I mean, that's one of the things I try to share with my children as well. You know, I got a daughter who's a teenager and two young little strapping young lads, you know what I mean, sons, and
Yeah.
you know what I mean. I let them know, you know, because you know, we're linemen, bro. We're tough. You know
Right.
what I mean?
Yes, absolutely.
You can't be weak and be in this trade, you know? I mean, there's a lot of guys out there nowadays who try to act tough and stuff like that. We know we're tough, you know? And
That's right.
with that being said, tough guys cry, dude. You know what I mean? And we gotta show them that. We gotta, you know, show them that, hey, it's okay to be hurt. You know, there's things in life that are not gonna, you know, happen, and it's gonna disappoint us. And guess what? It's okay to be disappointed, but we need to adapt. You know,
That's right.
we got to be able to handle it. You know, and we got to be able to take that blow on the chin. You know, and come back. You know, because I think now more than ever, children are being taught that life is just going to beat you up, and they stay down. You know, no more, you know, dust it off, kid, like they used to tell us. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
You know, you get hurt or whatever, get the wind knocked out of you. You know, what'd they tell you? Get up, you know, knock the dirt off, get back in there. You know what I mean? And that's kind of that cowboy mentality, lineman mentality that I think us as tradesmen have. You know what I mean? And if you have that balance, especially with daughters, you know what I mean? We teach them that grit, right? But if we
absolutely
take it to another level and we don't have that balance, then it can be negative as well. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely, man. You have to, you know, with the kids these days, you have to find a way that you can relate to them, to speak to them. You know, some kids can't take the walk it off kind of, you know, mentality.
Mm-hmm.
But you got to find a way, and it's no different when you talk to an apprentice too. There's different ways to, you know, to approach different apprentices. They all learn a different way, and you got to form a relationship with every single one of them. You got to adapt yourself. It's no different, in my opinion, the way you deal with your kids. You know, one kid may have a whole different attitude. You got to learn how to adapt to one daughter than to the next, you know, and find that balance.
Absolutely.
You know, that's the way I look at it.
No, I can't agree with you more. One of the, I had a line daddy, you know, like all of us. And one of the things I always was impressed with him is he would take like the worst apprentices, dude. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Anybody who they, you know, the ones that had a chip on their shoulder or whatever, you know, he'd take them. And I had to ask him, I was like, why do you do that? And he'd be like, dude, everybody has a strength. being a good lineman, being a good coach, being a good father is being able to see their strengths and then just put them in there, and that builds confidence in them. You know what I mean? If they can only dig holes, well, guess what? Put them in dig holes and go for it. You know what I mean? Just win, baby. You know what I mean? That was his mentality, you know, and it you know, he was a good lineman. He was a good father, you know.
That's awesome.
I wanted to ask you, Tony, how hard was it raising 2 daughters, bro?
Raising 2 girls, you know, fortunately for me, it turned out okay, man. I didn't have a lot of problems with them. You know, and I don't know, the way I raised them along with their mothers, it wasn't very difficult. They knew the expectations that we had of them. I was very fortunate and blessed to have 2 girls, and they are different, but they had the same values, same discipline, totally different attitudes. But I got to tell you, man, I didn't have a hard time at all with 2 girls. I probably would have had a hard time with a boy. But I mean, I got to tell you, it was a joy raising them and see how they blossom. And it's just been a joy, man. It wasn't tough for me in the sense of like the whole, I have 2 daughters, like, oh my gosh, you know, it wasn't in that way. So I don't know. I wish I could answer that better.
One of the things I wanted to ask, like for me having 1 daughter, right? Especially now that she's, you know, becoming a young lady, like, I don't know anything about that. And, you know, the other day she told my, you know, my wife, she's like, man, I'm so glad that you're my mom and you can help me with this, because Dad would be, where's the 33? You know what I mean? You know what I'm saying? I mean, I'd be a complete mess, dude. So, you know, that's one of the things that I think I would have a hard time with, you know what I mean? But like you said, you just got to adapt and, you know what I mean, just overcome and be able to see how you could relate to them, correct?
Sure, right. That is right.
Now, with that being said, what are some of the mistakes you made that you can share with us as far as, you know, thinking back, like something that you would have changed?
Yeah, some of the mistakes I made in my early career was, you know, I had to travel a lot in my early career, you know, and not that was a mistake. I was working towards something, but was what I'm better at now, or been better for a long time now, was my time management. I think that was the most important thing. I think that a line hand or anyone who works a ton of time is that time management. You know, we're out there chasing money, chasing a storm here and there. You only need so much. And in my early career, I chased a lot. And although I came home and I was there for my girls, it took a lot out of me. It took a lot of energy out of me, where I could have had more quality time with the girls. You know, it was intense, man. But in my mind, I was doing it for them, right? I was thinking, no, I got to get this, I got to get that. I have to be ready for these girls to have everything. But sometimes that's not everything. Fortunately, everything turned out well. But that's one of my regrets, was just chasing way too much, you know. And you know, that's how life is sometimes. You know, I thought I was doing the right thing, you know, in my mind. It took me a while to learn, like, okay, slow it down a little bit, you know. And part of that reason, me transitioning into the office, was that itself, because my girls were getting older. And I was like, okay, I got to slow it down here. Here's an opportunity. I got an opportunity to become a supervisor, you know, and have I was thinking, you know, now I have a broader scope on guys I can teach, you know, some of the things I've learned, you know. And the icing on the cake is I'm going to be home more for my girls, you know. So that's one of the things. That was one of the mistakes I made, was just trying to chase too much, you know, at the very beginning of my career.
I like what you said, Tony, at the beginning when I asked you the question. You said that you had a plan, right? You had a goal you're working to. I think a lot of times as linemen, I know myself, we go at it, you know, just for lack of better words, balls deep, dude. We get
Mm-hmm.
after it. We chase that money. We like that money. We get used to spending, 5-6 grand, making that money
Yeah.
a week. You know what I mean? And people can't even like comprehend like the amount of money that we make. You know what I mean? And it kind of feeds our ego, I guess. So you get kind of
Yeah.
stuck in that trap where it's like, I've had conversations with the people where they're like complaining about $200-$300, and when you ask me, oh, let's go buy a Harley, or let's go drop 10 grand on a new building or whatever. That's to us as line hands. It's like, okay, sure, I'll just hit a storm. I'll go make a quick 30. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
We never. I guess what I'm trying to say is we don't think about the implications that has, you know what I mean? The ripples it costs,
Mm-hmm.
because for me, it cost me, a relationship with my daughter in her younger years. It cost me in my relationship with my wife. You know what I mean? I'm still
Right.
trying to repair damage that was caused, from, just me being out of town and telling her, I'll be home, I'll be home, I'll be home, I'll be home. You know what I mean? And it's like year after year after year just goes by, dude. And
Yeah.
you know what I mean? You're still doing it. You're still doing the same thing. And like you, we get caught up. We're doing it for our family,
Right.
So I can resonate with that really, and I know a lot of our listeners too will, see that as well in themselves, if they're really honest, I had a past guest on here, Toni, and he talked about how our daughters need a relationship with their father, and that they need to know that they are cherished and loved. Okay. What are some of the things you did to make sure that they felt that way from you?
I'm divorced. I was married twice.
Okay.
I got divorced twice. Okay, so and I have a daughter from each marriage.
Oh,
And,
okay.
They didn't happen to live close to me. I had one 30 miles to the east, and the other one was 60 miles to the west.
Mm-hmm.
And one thing that I made sure that I did with these young ladies was I picked them up every time, and I didn't fail, whether I worked all night or not. And I drove 30 miles one way and 60 miles the other. And the most important thing out of all that was the time we spent in the car, because it was all about conversations.
Mm.
It was all about talking. And I cherish those memories so much of us just talking, because we spent a good of 4 hours in the car on a single weekend,
Mm-hmm.
and that's just what it was, man. And it was just good conversations, what they're up to, what is going on, what they were sad about, all those things. And then in return, I did the same to them, like, hey, this is what's going on with me, because we had time, and it was uninterrupted time. There was no TV, the radio was off. It was just us talking. I think, and I've had conversations with my daughter about those things, and I think we learned a lot from each other. And we took a bunch of vacations, we've done all that stuff, but those memories of sitting in the car talking to them, I think I remember those the most out of all the things we've done. Although we did a lot of fun things, that's how I got to know my girls. And it was in a car, man. It was just, they know I love them, because I will tell them anything. They ask me, I will tell them. I've learned from them. They've helped me. My 23-year-old has taught me things, It's incredible. But yeah, I mean, just being able to talk to your kids,
Mm-hmm.
I think shows a lot, that your kids know that you're humble enough to share things with them. That's love right there, brother.
Absolutely, man. Just having those open lines of communication where they trust you and they can come to you. You know what I mean? And that's a big plus, bro. Especially as a father. You know what I mean? There's a lot of stuff that, I know for my daughter, she's getting better, right? But there's a lot of stuff that she's afraid to tell me. You know what I mean? And
Mm-hmm.
whether I look scary or whatever, you know what I mean? What she thinks I'm going to say or whatever, you know what I mean? That's something that we're trying to work on in our dynamic, you know what I'm saying? But man, just having like those open communication lines like you talked about, and then just really just reaching them, because that's what you did during that time in the car. You're communicating with them. You were connecting, right? Everybody talks about
Mm-hmm.
connection, and that's what you were doing. You're connecting with your daughter, because I had another psychologist come on here and talk about saying that a father and a daughter's relationship is so unique and dynamic because a daughter's first representation of a man that she knows in her life is her father. So every man she bases in her relationship is going to be based off of what she knew about her father. And that was pretty powerful for me, bro.
Mm-hmm.
So if you can ask the question, right, and be honest,
Mm-hmm.
you know what I mean? You ask yourself, man, am I okay with my daughter marrying somebody like me? Then that's a good thing. That means you did your part. But if you're not
Right.
okay with that, then you know what I mean? There's got to be some
Exactly.
changes, you know what I'm saying?
That's right.
But I wanted to see here, we talked about being cherished and being loved, right? Having that communication, right? Because there are little princesses. What are some of the things that you like, did you ever like write them notes or anything like that? Or did you do anything special for them at all or during your time?
Yeah. One of the things I've always done since they were little, and I'm talking since my oldest was probably 7 or 8 years old, is I always grab the door for them. We're getting in the car, I get the door. And they know when they get to the door, Daddy's coming. He's going to open it for me. And I still do it to this day. It's something to me, I treat them just like you said, princesses, man. I do that for them, In fact, as far as the notes and stuff like that, just recently I wrote my, the little one, the 18-year-old, a letter, just telling her how proud I am of her, for her graduation and talking about these in the letter, man. I have it right in front of me. It was, I looked it up today. I was like, man, this is a great thing, and I could read you a little bit of it. I was talking about our drives, and it says a drive that has covered over 100,000 miles. I would have never thought in all my life that I would get to know you so much by these conversations we had as we drive. You have shared accomplishments, sadness, and disappointments and happiness, all in the cab of a car, and I have been blessed to have been there to listen to you. I've always shared with you some of my shortcomings so that you learn from my own mistakes. And this letter goes on and on talking about these special times that we had. And these letters, man, just like you said, letters like this mean a lot. And I'll continue to do that. My oldest daughter, my 23-year-old, she always calls me like, hey, Dad, what's up? And boom, that's my cue. Let's talk. That's all I need. What's up, Dad? What's going on? And we talk. And dude, that's so important,
No, absolutely. It's that's so awesome that you have that relationship that you built like that. You know what I mean? That's a testament to other fathers out there. I mean, because that's deep down what we all want. You know what I mean? No one wants to be estranged from their kid at all. You know what I mean? Whether it be a son or a daughter. You know what I mean? But man, I don't know, man. It's crazy because daughters, I know, especially for me, they hold a special place in a father's heart. You know? And man, I'd do anything for my little girl. Anything. You know what I mean? I'd walk through fire. It wouldn't even matter. You know what I'm saying? And that's, we say that, but I think as fathers, we need to learn how to convey that to them and show them that they are worth the fight, that they are worth the struggle. I think a lot of times as men, we get prideful, right? And it's like they get mad at us, whatever. They roll their eyes, they stomp out of there, whatever. And we're like, okay, see how it is. All right, let's see how it, go see how it is on your own end. Go out there. You know what I mean? Go see what the real world's about. You know what I mean? And you tell them that, and then if you actually really do that, you know what I mean? That's kind of damaging, dude. Because what they really deeply want is to know that they're worth the pursuit, and they carry that into relationships with men. Are they worth the pursuit? Yeah. You know what I mean? And that's what they want from their father. And it's crazy, like the correlation between a father and then how they view other men. You know what I mean? I learned this all from a lady by the name of Meg Meeker. She's a doctor, and she always, she has all these great books, about how daughters need heroes and stuff like that. She has this one book called Strong Fathers, Strong Daughters. And, she's always talking about how a daughter's first hero is her father. You know what I mean? So that's the next question I have for you. What did you do to become a hero to your daughters?
I think is treating those girls like they're my queens.
Mm-hmm.
I think throughout the years, I've done my very, very best to treat them in such a way that they know what to expect out of a man.
Mm-hmm.
Although I have made mistakes, and they've brought them up to me, and I'm so happy that they have, because I've learned from that, and I do listen to them. But apart that they think I'm cool,
Right.
I was a line. They love the lineman. They love linemen. They know about work. They can tell you about conductor. They know everything.
Mm-hmm.
Because they've heard it all their lives. So they think that's super cool, And then now the bladesmithing stuff, they're like, "Wow, my dad's awesome," But more importantly than that, it's just the connection that I've had with them. I hope, that they can consider me a hero, just how I've treated them and the things that I've had to do for them to be together,
Mm-hmm.
just driving so much just to make sure that they were together. I think it wasn't easy, but for me, it wasn't a chore. I knew that Saturday morning I got to get up and I got to be here and I got to be there and they're going to be together. I already knew that. And I hope that they look at that as like, something pretty extraordinary to accomplish in a weekend, just to make sure they were together. And any other time that they had to be together, just go fetch them,
Mm-hmm. No, and that definitely shows them that they're worth a chase. You know what I mean? All that extra effort you put in to make sure they're together, and not treating them like they're a burden.
Mm-hmm.
Because sometimes, I know I'm guilty of this. Sometimes you get busy, you get, whatever, you're got to go pack your bags because you're going to go on storm or whatever, and you're just kind of like, yeah, okay, I'll be right there. You know what I mean? Well, when we do that, we let them know that what we're doing at that moment is more important than they are. And that slowly chips away at their ability to how they think about themselves. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
And it's and I, once again, I attribute, learning that from Meg Meeker. One of the things she says, and I want to quote her, is our daughter's attitude towards themselves comes directly from us. That includes her ambitions, her expectations, and their assessment of their own capabilities, all from what we believe and what we say and what we do. That's powerful, bro.
Yeah.
And that's the influence we wield as a father, and that's the whole premise behind what we do here at this foundation is, it's noble to work, we have to work, we have to provide, you know what I mean? But we're more than just a paycheck at the end of the day. We have to make those connections. We have to have quality time. It's not necessarily quantity, because obviously we got to provide, we got to go to work and stuff like that. But if we can
Mm-hmm.
make that quality time, make that time count, like you did in that vehicle, on those long drives, you're making that connection. You're building those bridges of communication that later on in your life, you have successful young daughters now, 18, 23 years old, and they still want to speak to you. That's not the case for a lot of fathers, a lot of linemen.
Mm-hmm.
I'm pretty sure you've met a lot of linemen where they're like, my daughter, they don't even want to talk to me.
No, for sure.
So that's awesome that you're successful, and that's one of the reasons I wanted to bring you on here, is to share with especially these young dads, that hey, you can do it right. You know what I mean? How many of us bought into the whole deal where you're not a lineman unless you've been divorced 5 times, and you know what I mean? And, we've all heard it, right?
Yeah, right.
You know what I mean? When I was talking to you about our influence on our daughters, right? With their ambitions, you know, their expectations and stuff like that. Have you noticed anything like that in your daughters, you know, as far as like who they choose to date or like a work, like, you know, if they're choosing a job or stuff like that? Do you see your influence at all?
Oh, definitely. I mean, you know, both of my girls know that I'm a go-getter. You know, it's ever since my girls were little, I've always told them, you can do anything in life. You can do anything you want, and whatever you choose, just be the best at it. That's all I ask. You know, just be the best at what you do. And they've seen me, you know, their whole lives. I've been in the trade. You know, almost their whole lives. Except, you know, my 23-year-old was 3 years old. But they've grown up with this trade, and they've seen that everything I wanted to accomplish, I did. They've seen about the bladesmithing. I wanted to accomplish this goal, you know, to become a bladesmith, and I've done it. And I definitely see it in their actions. My oldest, my 23-year-old, she's a recent graduate from University of California, Riverside. She just graduated 2020, which was kind of crappy during the pandemic. But she's now getting ready to start her master's program. You know, she's ready to go do that. Very ambitious, she's a go-getter. She knows what she wants to do, you know, and she's going after it. My 18-year-old, I'll be dropping her off at LSU here in August. She'll be on her own in Louisiana going to school. She knows exactly what she wants to do. She's another go-getter. These girls are just all about it, and I think they've seen that growing up from her dad, you know, saying, hey, you're going to do something, you go 100%, you know, and you be the best at what you're going to do, you be the best at it. And I was very blessed to have these two girls that got A's their whole career. I mean, I didn't think it was possible getting a 4.6. I said, how do you do that? You know, how do you do that? And you know, they're just all about it, just like their dad. And, you know, so very, very blessed and fortunate that these girls, you know, have a good head on their shoulders. And, you know, and it ain't just because of me, you know, it's their moms as well. You know, they were there. They were there, you know. I co-parented these kids for a long time, and, you know, we both had the same agenda, you know, and it just happened to work out for us, you know, and I wish the best for my girls, you know, in all their dreams and everything, and they're well on their way to doing that. So, you know, I'm very happy and very fortunate.
No, that's an awesome testament, dude, right there, bro. Just to see how successful they become, and just for you to mirror what success is, you know what I mean, and that influence you wielded in your own home, you know what I mean, to where they're go-getters, and you don't see that a lot. I mean, how many times do you see people start something and they don't finish it, and that drives me insane, dude. Holy smokes! I mean that really pisses me off, dude. You know, I have a neighbor, right, and the dude will put up, like, you know, probably about 15 feet of fence, and then stop. Straight up stop, and then he'll paint half of that 15 feet, and then stop, and then he'll get lazy and get another color and paint that and not finish it, and that'll go on for about, I guess now 10 years now, and I'm like, my God, dude, what the hell, you know, you know what I'm saying? And it just drives me insane when people cannot finish. You know what I mean? You start something, you finish it. I mean, how many times did they tell you that growing up in the trade, or even your father? You know I learned that from my dad. You know, you start something, you finish it, and, you know, you do something, you do it right the first time. Otherwise, you're going to be out here, you know, restacking that wood. You know, that's what my old man used to tell me. He would go and we'd cut wood, and that's how he would get, you know, our extra money for like Christmas presents and stuff like that. And we'd deliver it all over to the rich people in Santa Fe. And, dude, that was back in the day where we cut it, we split it, we delivered it, and we stacked it. You don't see that nowadays, dude. Now they come, they just throw it there on the floor and try to get out of there before you can figure out if it's a true cord or not. You know what I mean? You know, but that was his mentality too. You know, it was like, you do it right the first time, or you're going to be out here stacking it again. And I don't care if it's cold. You know, that's the way my old man was. You know, and he taught us definitely, you know, what it meant to be a good worker and have good work ethic and stuff like that. I wanted to ask you, dude, because I know a lot of fathers on here always get the same question, is how did you deal with daughters dating? Like, were you the type of guy who's over there cleaning the shotgun, or, when they came over and stuff like that? Or, you know what I'm saying? Like, how did you deal with that?
So it was, well, my oldest, she's had, her boyfriend right now, he's an awesome kid. They both went to college together. They actually grew up together. And I have a feeling they were probably boyfriend and girlfriend sooner than I thought they were. But it wasn't until her senior year that she finally told me Aaron's her boyfriend, Mm-hmm. But I had known this kid already, and Aaron's a good kid, He's an awesome guy. So that one wasn't too difficult to accept, And then, my 18-year-old, she, as far as I know, and as far as her mom as well, her first boyfriend just, was just now 18 years old, 17, her senior year, Mm-hmm. But that one was a little tougher because my 17-year-old, or my 18-year-old now, she's totally different from my 23-year-old. She's like let's get it. Come on, let's go. Yeah. If you say, hey, you guys want to go here? She's all about it. She's already in the car. Let's rock and roll. Mm-hmm. So I was like, oh man, what's going to happen here? But fortunately, her boyfriend, his name is Chance. He's a good kid, got a good head on his shoulders. He's off in Notre Dame right now. He took off early because he's going to be cornerback for Notre Dame this coming up season. So, wow. So he's already there. So now it's like, they're going to be apart, but they're still boyfriend and girlfriend. But it was tough at first just because of how outgoing little Toni is, I was like, oh my gosh, what am I going to have to do here, And I got this football star kid, what does he want, what I'm saying? It's just,
yeah.
That was tough. But then I realized, what? He was raised, when I started learning more about him, he was raised in the same manner that little Toni was, where they had a goal, and they went to pretty privileged schools, both of them, and they knew what they had to do to go to this school. This is the expectations for you to maintain. It's for you to keep going to this school. And they were both raised in the same manner where they weren't out every week. They weren't out on the weekends. They weren't doing stuff. They were focused on getting into a good school, Mm-hmm. Now it's going to be a little, now little Toni's taken off. She's going to be by herself. So, of course, I'm going to be worried that she's out in Louisiana by herself. But I hope that everything that we've taught her, will still remain true. And she does fine, But, yeah, definitely, dude, I was a little more worried there. But it happened in the later years for me, Mm-hmm. Not until they were 17, 18 years old. And, I like I said, I was a little worried about little Toni because she is the outgoing kid, Mm-hmm. She's going to be a politician. She's got to be.
All right. Now, I wanted to ask you, was that by choice that they chose not to date later, or was that like a rule in the house? Like,
it was my rule. It was my rule. My rule was that number one focus is, getting through school with good grades, and I never saw it in them as oh, Dad, I can't believe this. I never saw that in them. It was accepted. And also because, Mom was in the same boat. She was on the same boat. She wasn't all about, oh, you can date at 16, you can do all that. I told them just straight out, I go, look, you got too much going on, because, little Toni played volleyball, and Carissa was involved in so many other things that there was no time for boys. And I said, look, if you do it right, the time will come when you're ready for it, and then it'll show up, and it'll be great, but don't go out looking for it. I know they're coming looking for you, but don't fall into nothing. And it was sort of a rule, but I never said, you better not, Mm-hmm. It was never like that. It was just, look, the time will come, and it'll be right. And, mm-hmm. Just focus on what you got going. And they did. They both focused on school to graduate with honors, and you know what I mean? And then now, both of them are in their own little relationship. Well, Chris and Aaron have been going for a while now, and he's a great kid. And now I got got another guy. I got Chance, you know, and so far he's proven to be a good kid, you know. So can't be happier.
Yeah, that's really cool too, because I have older sisters that are twins. They're 7 years older than me, and they were not allowed to date, you know, and they knew better. You know, that's just the way my old man was, you know, and you know, where we lived, the story was don't date the twins because their dad will shoot your kneecaps off. You know what I mean? That's how everybody perceived them. You know what I mean? And
oh man,
so they were afraid to, you know, guys were like afraid to ask them out. You know,
yeah, I can imagine. Yeah,
you know, and then but they turned out good. You know, one of them's gonna, you know, she's gonna be running for Secretary of State for the state of New Mexico here coming up, and
right. Oh,
yeah, you know, and the other one, my other sister, her twin Bev, she actually is a licensed counselor for northern New Mexico, where she helps, you know, like troubled children and stuff like that, and like with CYFD and stuff like that. So that was her heart. So they both did really, really good. You know, that was pretty interesting to see though, because I mean, it could go the other way. You know, if you're too strict.
Yeah.
You know, they can
absolutely it can.
Yeah, they could rebel. You know what I mean? And we didn't. You know what I mean? My dad was fortunate. I should say, not me, but my dad was fortunate that that it didn't turn out that way. I think they had the, you know, for lack of better words, what he used to always say, you know, put the fear of God in you. You know what I mean? If you act up, you know, type of mentality. You know, and that's.
Oh yeah.
You know, that's just the old school way of thinking. You know, and you know, fortunately for him, it actually worked out, you know, but man, there's
honestly, I think that if you have a good relationship with your daughter and an open one, obviously an open relationship where you can talk about it. If you got to talk about boys, it's not easy for the man, but I'll tell you what, if you can talk about that, man, you'll be all right. And I think they'll respect that out of you, saying, you know, like, and then you show them what's important right now. Like this is what number one priority is right now, because you have a lifetime to date and, you know, do whatever you want. But right now, this is number one, because we got to get you to this place right now. And they see it. They do see it, you know, but you can't be forceful. You can't be forceful. And if, you know, if they do have a boyfriend, you better be ready to talk. You better be ready to talk. Don't get angry, you know, but you got to be willing to be open with them and talk, you know. I'm sorry, you know, I said that Toni had a boyfriend. This is her first boyfriend. She had a kid that broke her heart her junior year. And we were able to talk about it. And I said, baby, your first broken heart, you know, this is going to happen. And then she started telling me more about this kid. And I was like, okay, you know what? He doesn't seem too cool. You know, look at all the things he did. He ignored you here, ignored you there. Why are we crying over him? Like, let's forget about this kid. And that was important to talk about that, you know? So, but keep him focused, you know, in the right direction, but be ready to talk, because you want them to come to you. You don't want them to hide stuff from you, and, you know, bad things can happen, whatever. Just be ready to talk. That's all you got to be, man.
And it's cool to see, because just like thinking about your story and just what you've said so far, you know, I can actually go back and think about and see where you actually made that connection, where you built that trust. And it was in those, you know, those drives.
Yeah.
That's
those conversations, man.
Exactly. Those little conversations you had with them for 4 hours and stuff, just building that trust. So they knew they could come to Daddy when it came down to, hey, Dad, I want to talk to you about this. Right.
Yeah.
You know, and I think that's probably one of the biggest takeaways from this podcast that, you know, you're on, is just learning to build those bridges, you know what I mean, in conversation and stuff like that. And that's pretty awesome that you're able to share with us the way you did that. You know what I mean? Now I wanted to ask you, Toni, hindsight 2020, if you were to run into yourself, you know, like say 15 years ago, what would you tell your younger self? Like, what a bit of advice would you give yourself if you were to run into yourself, you know, a younger version?
I would definitely tell myself that I know there's a goal
Mm-hmm.
that you want to get to, and we're fortunate to work in a trade where it's endless,
Mm-hmm.
and it's not a race. It's definitely not a race, and you will get there. You will get there, but keep in mind what's in front of you right now. Keep that, the number one goal should be, if you have children, that's it right there, and your spouse, obviously. But I would tell myself that this is not a race. Just hang in there. You're going to accomplish everything, because I'll tell you what, we can go work anywhere we want,
Mm-hmm.
and the money's there. It ain't going nowhere. It's actually more work than ever.
Yep.
So I would tell myself that, man, slow it down, take care of what's in front of you right now, just to ensure that those kids grow up correctly, with their dad there. Fortunately for me, it turned out well. It did take a lot more effort of traveling and trying to get them, and no sleep, just moving around a bunch to make sure the girls were together. That was my price. That was my price, and to me, looking back at it, hey, that's the way it was. Life wasn't any different. That's the way it was for me. So it's cool. But that can take a toll on some people.
Mm-hmm.
It really can. And why put yourself through that? Just slow it down, make your money. You're going to make plenty of it. And, just reach your goal. It might take you just a little bit longer. Really not that long, because,
Mm-hmm.
man, there's a lot of it out there right now.
Man, there is, man. It's crazy, and it just keeps going up and up and up, the ante. One of the things that I had a lineman tell me one time, he's like, man, if you can't pay your bills on 40 hours a week, anything over 40 is extra. That goes into savings, whatever you want to do. Buy yourself a brand new truck, whatever, So, but if you can't make your bills on 40, something's wrong with your life. You need to really, really assess it. And man, I always think about that. It's like, man, if you can't pay your bills on 40 hours, you need to start making changes, start making shifts. You know what I'm saying? Because fortunately, the overtime's there now, but I mean, how many times have we seen it go up and down?
Oh yeah. And I'll tell you what, man, if anybody wants to try it, if you're a contractor, go to the utility, and when you're not at the top of the list for the overtime, you'll work a 40-hour week, and you'll get humbled real quick.
Oh yeah.
and I'll tell you what, it's the funniest thing in the world, because when I got there, and all of a sudden, I'm at the bottom of the overtime list, because it works differently. It's not like, hey, you're working tonight. There's a list.
Mm-hmm.
It's called, so. And when you're at the bottom, you ain't getting no work. You're like, man, I used to make more as a fifth-step apprentice.
Yeah, for real.
It'll humble you real quick. I'll tell you that right now. So, but it works out okay, because when you get to the top of the list, you'll work your hours, you'll get your money back. But it does make you realize, like, okay, I gotta manage, how I spend my money, because you could be at the bottom of the list for a little while and working 40 hours, And I'll tell you what, driving home sometimes at 3:30, I was like, what am I going to do with the rest of my day?
Go build knives. Right?
Yeah.
No, that's so true too, man, especially when you go from getting paid weekly, to bi-weekly. And that sucks.
You're like, oh, man. Hey, one of our sayings was when we're and Raul Guardado.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
You were just on his podcast. I used to work for Raul. This is 15 years ago. We were working for this contractor. We used to get paid early. I think it was on Wednesdays. Mm-hmm. And one of our things was, hey, bro, don't worry about it. You'll be rich on Wednesday again.
Right.
Wrong mentality, man. Come on, let's go buy this,
And it's funny too, because you get used to that. Like I like sometimes you go from different contractors, and like one of the contractors I worked with was Wednesday, right? You got direct deposit.
Yeah, exactly.
Direct deposit was a blessing, dude, because I've been on some jobs where before there was direct deposit, where you're actually driving 60 miles to deposit your check because you're working 7/12s, and they're taking money out of your check, and then you're having to wire that money to your wife so she could put it in your bank, and that sucks. Yeah. Because you're over there on some high line, building a 230 line in the middle of nowhere. But So direct deposit definitely is a blessing. But you get comfortable. You're like, okay, so Wednesday, right? We're getting paid, and then you work for another contractor, and it's like, no, it's Thursday, and then you go to another contractor, and like, by law, 5 p.m. on a Friday is what the contract says. You know what I mean? It's just we get spoiled, is what I'm trying to get at, right?
Yeah, we do.
But I just want to thank you once again, Toni, for coming on this podcast, dude. You're an awesome dude, bro. I really enjoyed talking to you, and I want to give you an opportunity to just share with our audience where they can find you. I know you make knives and stuff like that, and do you have a website or anything that they can go to?
So I mainly do everything out of Instagram, and it's
okay.
Toni. It's Toni_Bravo_knives. If you just punch up Toni Bravo Knives, it'll show up. Mainly out of there, you can see a bunch of videos of me working, pictures of knives that I'm working on and past. And it's been a journey, definitely, man. And I'm having a lot of fun with it. And I really do appreciate you having me on the show, man. I love talking about this subject exactly, and that's about, being a father and being a dad. So thank you for the opportunity to share with you guys, man. I really do appreciate it.
Absolutely, Toni. That's awesome, dude. And just once again, thank you for just sharing your life, your story, on this podcast. And that's what we're here for. We're trying to, just engage fathers and let them know, hey, we're more than just a paycheck. Once again, this is David from the Show Up Dad Foundation. Thank you. And thank you, Toni. And God bless you, brother. And take care, bro. We'll be talking to you some more. Okay, bro?
Appreciate it, my man. Thank you so much.
All right, brother. Bye.